This is an ongoing investigation. Director Frank Milstead.
Thank you, Bart. Today is evidence of the violent nature of policing in our nation. It's also evidence that just because somebody is unarmed doesn't mean they won't become armed and harm somebody. And in this case, what initially was an unarmed man armed himself with one of our weapons, fired 2 shots, fatally wounding one of my troopers and shooting another one. I can't thank the women and men of law enforcement enough to being brave enough to come to work every day and to do this job. It's incredibly difficult, and I will tell you from the time that I was on the streets of Phoenix as a young police officer to today, it continues to be more and more complicated. I'm going to run you through a little timeline. I will try not to get too much specificity in the timeline, but I think it's important to understand what we came across, and also what seems like a innocuous type of call for service where there's a person in a roadway. If you think about somebody being on Interstate 10 in the roadway, it kind of changes that nature of the call. But at about 10:17 last night, the 25th of July, we originally received calls of a subject out in the roadway, and then a subject throwing objects at cars out on I-10. Several motorists had pulled over to the right-hand side of the roadway to try to get the subject out of the road. Arizona Department of Public Safety Communications received these calls and dispatched 2 sets of officers. Both of them were just within minutes of the event. First to arrive on scene was Officer Dalen Doris, who arrived and within about 1 minute of arriving asked for another unit, asked for a backup. About 1 minute after that, Troopers Roadcap and Trooper Edenhofer arrived. Trooper Edenhofer was in field training. He was actually in his last days of field training. He had graduated from the State Trooper Academy on May 4th. He'd been one of my troopers for 52 days. Somewhere in this instance, there was a fight that ensued as they tried to get the subject off of the roadway. This is an ongoing investigation. The detectives are still conducting interviews and looking at physical evidence. They collected some 70 items of evidence from the roadway and from the scene. Ultimately, the suspect, who I will identify here shortly, was able to take control of Trooper Roadcap's duty weapon and fire 2 shots, mortally wounding one and striking the other in the upper right shoulder area. Suspect has no criminal history. He's an African-American male. He's 20 years old. His name is Isaac King. He has mental health history. He apparently was on medication for anxiety and depression. We've talked to his parents, his mother particularly, who has been cooperative and thought he was in the backyard during this event. She said about 9:30 he'd been outside on the trampoline. He resides in Avondale. A couple of things strike me as we look at this. One of them was talking to Trooper Edenhofer's fiancée. Kaylee Sieving had her entire future in front of her and her life with Tyler to look forward to. That is gone. And the question she asked me is, why Tyler? And I don't have an answer. His mother, Debbie Edenhofer, I will never forget her words either when I went to greet her at the hospital early this morning, and she said to me, "You just got him." And she's right. He just got here. Over my career, I've lost an incredible number of friends and colleagues, both at Phoenix PD and now here. I would just ask everyone to remember the volatility of this job, the violence that goes along with it, and the fact that we asked young men and women to make split-second decisions on their own lives and others, and then we talk about it for months to come. It is an unenviable job at times. It is the most rewarding career one could ask for. I would tell you that we see things and do things that most people would not believe. And most of us have the capacity to deal with those circumstances with the utmost grace and respect. The men and women that leadership behind me and myself represent would give their lives to save the life of somebody they don't even know. Behind me is Chief from Phoenix, Jerry Williams, Chief Nanagay from Avondale, Assistant Chief from Goodyear. All of them played a part. Their departments were all a part of what happened last night. Collaboratively, Arizona law enforcement looks after one another, takes care of one another. This is a very dark day for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. I guarantee you that we will be resilient and we will press on. I ask that you give the respect to the Edenhofer family. Some have already descended upon her home. Her world changed this morning. Her most proudest moment, her son graduating from the State Trooper Academy, has changed everything. Thank you for covering this story. Thank you to Arizona for your support of law enforcement. Thank you for the support for the Arizona State Troopers and what we do and stand for. And I'll take a few of your questions.
Hey, Colonel, two questions.
Yes, sir.
The first is, how was the suspect able to get his hands on a gun? And the second is, I'm curious, do you guys do any training for when you're in a physical confrontation with a suspect to avoid losing your service?
So there's two questions. The first one was, how did Officer Roadcap lose control of his weapon? And the second part was, do we conduct training on weapons retention? I'll answer the first part first, and that is, at this point, I don't have the details. I can just tell you that there was about an 8-minute fight roadside that went on, and during that 8 minutes of struggle with what would be one suspect, and I would say up to 6 police officers, it went on for 8 minutes. And I don't know if the gun became dislodged or he felt it and took control of it. I will tell you that Trooper Roadcap was in plain clothes. This was the last week of field training, and he was not in silver tan uniform, but he was in street clothes, as he was really there as a bystander and not to be used as an ally for anybody that might come up and need information. We try to focus the last week of training just on the trooper and see how they do working as a solo unit.
Can you provide the training?
Yeah, any of our training that's open source, we're more than happy to provide.
How is the weapon secured in the holster? I.e., is there like a clip or a snap? Or
So the question is, how was the weapon controlled in the holster? This was a leather holster that was secured to the belt. It is a non-retention type holster, which means it only has a snap up on top, and it doesn't have a mechanism within inside the holster itself to keep somebody from grabbing it without hitting a button or maneuvering or manipulating the weapon in a certain angle to remove it from the holster. So it would just be a standard leather holster.
What were some of the items that he was throwing on the freeway and hitting cars with?
The question was, what are the items that he was hitting cars with? And I do not have the answer to that. I'm sorry.
How did he drop the gun? Did it just go off the belt?
The question is, how did the gun get loose? And again, I don't know the answer to that. We are still not clear on that issue. We still have some interviews to do. Some of this will change over time, people. That it's an ongoing investigation. I'm trying to give you everything that we have today that I'm able to release.
So he wasn't in his tan uniform. He was in plain street clothes with his standard utility belt?
He was actually in blue jeans and a T-shirt. He looked just like he was a citizen observer that night.
So his belt with the gun?
He didn't have any criminal background, yet he was under medication at some point?
Mr. King did not have a criminal background. That is correct.
What are the status now?
Do you know if any of the troopers had drawn their guns on the suspect?
I do not know the answer to that, sir. And the question was, do I know whether they drew their weapons? I don't know if that occurred or not. We're still going through those types of interviews.
One more question.
How am I doing? I'm doing okay. It's an honor to lead the men and women of this fine agency. It's an honor to be a member of Arizona law enforcement for as long as I have. And I ask myself, if not me, who gets to lead in times of trouble? And I'm honored to do so. Obviously, quite shaken by the circumstances. It's been a long evening and morning, but I appreciate you asking, but I'm proud to lead. Thank you for your time. I hope you all get all the answers you're looking for as we do, and I ask you for your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. VIOs, Captain Matt will be around to answer any other questions regarding things associated with the investigation. If you all would follow.
I'm not going to stand behind the podium. I'm pretty sure the director hopefully answered all your questions. Then you have to remember that it's an ongoing investigation, so there's not going to be much more that we can even talk to you about right now at this time.
Is the suspect still in the hospital?
Suspect is still in a local hospital, yes,
Did you
ma'am.
say why he's hospitalized?
I cannot say why he's hospitalized.
Were troopers wearing body cameras?
I do not know at this time.
How old is the suspect, you said?
Suspect is 20 years of age.
20.
Yes.
Do you know, will he be charged after he gets out of the hospital?
Well, it's an ongoing investigation. The detectives will come up with all the charges and they will make that, they will file those. When that's done, we'll be sure to let you guys know.
Do you know yet if he was on some sort of medication last night when this happened?
I do not know what medication he was on. We won't know that till after they go through the stuff from the hospital.
And is he cooperating at this time, or is he awake, talking?
I do not know. Like I said, it's an ongoing investigation. We're not, I'm not over at the hospital with the detectives, so.
Do we know if the suspect actually grabbed the gun and fired?
Do not. Again, we don't know. We don't know. It's an ongoing investigation. We do not know. I do not know. We don't know. One of the officers was shot through the shoulder, and it was a through and through. The other one was shot kind of in the shoulder, and it ricocheted down, and that's what caused the fatal.
So was he wearing a bulletproof vest?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Was he wearing a bulletproof vest?
You know what? I can't tell you for sure. Again, I don't want to comment. The investigators will fill that in.
What is Aiden Hopper's exact birthday? I know he's 24.
We'll send that out. Again, we'll update our press release that we sent out, so there'll be additional information in there. The pictures will be attached to that update too, that you guys will all receive.
Do you know if Trooper Edenhofer had an assignment waiting for him once he was completed with training?
Yes, he did.
What was that assignment?
I believe he was going to be assigned to the Yuma area.
What's that?
To the Yuma area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
And what's your name, sir?
I am Captain Tony Mapp, M-A, P as in Paul, P as in Paul. Thank you.